Heite Skoller. Quad heite viv. Quad heite viv. Rita. Hello, Rita. Quad heite viv. Hanna. Hello, Hanna. Hanna, have you met Rita? You met Rita? Just now. Have you met Hannah? Just now. Very nice to meet people here. Yes, you see, my background is a little mixed. My father was born in Russia. My mother was born in Sweden, and I was born in the United States and brought up in Denmark. I've learned a little, I've inherited a little from my father and a little from my mother, and I will give you a couple of examples. This is what I learned from my father. Jezus sardu darže žorahi Zjozder samar lota utra Jezus naivoj Как меня дороги от Московии вечера. Если б знали вы, как меня дороги от Московии вечера. And from my mother I learned För ut i gamla Borhuslen, där växer ingen päronträd, där växer bara makrell och lutfisk och inlaxsill. Pling, blotta, blotta, bling, 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 blotta, blotta, bling, 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 blotta, blotta, bling, bling, och 5 snapsar till. And then I came to Denmark. And in Denmark, we have a very famous story writer. And his name is Hans Christian Andersen. You have probably heard about H.C. Andersen, another famous Dane. This is a song about the ugly duckling. There once was an ugly duckling with feathers all stumpy and brown, and all of the birds in so many words said, "Quack! Get out of town, get out, get out of town." And he went with a thwack and a waddle and a thwack in a flurry of the eider down. That poor little ugly duckling went wandering far and near, but at every place they said straight to his face, "Get out of here, get out." Get out of here. And he went with a whack and a waddle and a and a very unhappy tear. All through the winter time he hid himself away, ashamed to show his face, afraid of what others might say. All through the winter in his lonely clump of weed, till a flock of swans spied him there and suddenly all agreed, yet a very fine swan indeed. A swan? Me a swan? Oh no. Oh, go on, I'm not a swan. Well, then take a look at yourself in that lake and you'll see. And he looked, and he saw, and he said, "Why, it is me. I am a swan, wee. I'm not such an ugly duckling, no feathers all stuffy and brown. Point back these birds in so many words, say, the best in town, the best in town. Not a quack, not a quack, not a waddle or a quack, but a glide and a whistle and a flurry wide back and a head duckling, not I. And a song in Danish. It's a song about a guy who gets a little too much to drink one day, and he lands in the ditch, and a pig visits him. En gris. På en dejlig sommeraften havde jeg nippet lidt til saften på en lille meget hyggelig landsbykro. Og så lagde jeg mig i grøften, men så hørte jeg en snøften. Og en gris krøb ned til mig og gik til ro. Men jeg snorkede uforstyrret der i grøften sammen med dyret, til en ældre dame kom og sagde til mig: der er væsner, som man kender på deres valg af nære venner. Hvorpå grisen rejste sig og gik sin vej. Now you've had something in Danish as well. Have you heard about a very, well, I think he's very well known, this firefighter. Every time there's an oil platform on fire, they call for Mr. Red Adair. Have you heard the name Red Adair? You haven't heard the name Red Adair? No? Yes, you have? You're the only one who heard about Mr. Red Adair? All of them, they're too shy to answer. What heter du? Emma! Hello, Emma. I have a dog by the name of Emma. She's very, very sweet. Very, very nice. In Denmark, we, if we mix, not any, it's not because I want to compare, but if a dog is not like, I mean, a full breed, it's a mixture, blandingur. We call it in Denmark gadekryds. Do you know what I mean by that? Two dogs, they meet where the two streets meet, and then they make some other new dogs. And but just to tell you how Emma is not where two streets meeting. She's more like a roundabout. That reminds me of there was a little boy out walking with his father, and then they passed two dogs who were having a nice time, producing new dogs. And the little boy said, "Daddy, what are they doing?" And you see, when I was a little boy and I was out walking with my father, and we passed two dogs, not the same dog, no. This was 35 years ago. But when I said, "Daddy, what are they doing?" at that time you would probably get the following answer: "Well, my son, what you're seeing is that the poor female dog apparently ran out of gasoline. And now he has been kind enough to offer to push her home." But you see, that kind of an explanation you cannot use today, because the kids know far too much about cars. So this father said, "Well, my son, what you're seeing is that the poor male dog apparently has hurt his front paws, and now she has been kind enough to offer to carry him home." Then the boy looks up at his father and says, "Daddy, that's typical, man. You try to help somebody, you get screwed." So that was Emma. Well, yes. Oh, we forgot about Red Adair, didn't we? Now be honest. Have you heard about Mr. Red Adair? How many? Show me your arm. How many has heard about Red Adair? You. Fred Astaire. You heard about Fred Astaire. Great. Lovely Rita. Okay, we'll forget about Fred Astaire and Fred Astaire till next time. But anyway, I have been asked to talk tonight about the Icelandic economy. In modern society. As you may know, part of the Icelandic economy has been facing some very severe crises. I would say some of the severest crises since 1382. And those of us who still remember, we know that if we are to prevent the lights from going completely out over our heads once again, we must now ask ourselves some very important questions. Because the Icelandic economy is facing some very severe crises. I'm thinking about inflation, sky-high taxes, discussing whether you want one or two balconies at the National Theatre, while the bus drivers are on strike, and while you send a trawler to Alaska on sightseeing tour. I would say to prevent these things from going on, we must now ask ourselves some very important questions. Where are we? How did we get here? Why did we come? And where do we want to go? Now, how do we want to get to where we want to go? With the bus drivers on strike? And how far do we have to go before we get to where we want to be? Why did we leave places to get to where we are? And where were we before? We prefer to know we had to leave to get to where we are before we knew we wanted to get to where we want to be. I'm glad you seem to understand. Now, where would we end up if we had the choice? Where would we end up if we didn't have the choice? Do we have that choice to choose? And can we in fact be choosy about the choice too? What are the choices? The choices. Choices, I'm sorry. Do we want to stop now? Of course. Not. Very little word, but it makes a hell of a difference, I would say. Or do we want to go back to the beginning and start all over again, perhaps? Not. But surely, ladies and gentlemen, surely you can see my point, because what I'm talking about is life. Not Leifur Eriksson, but life in general, because life is one of those things that most of us find it very difficult to live without. I would go as far as to say life is uncertain. My life certainly has a certain uncertainty about it, and I'm certain that yours does too. So with your uncertainty and my uncertainty, there is certainly a certain uncertainty about it of that we can be quite sure. So let's face it. Let's face it. We can't say no to the future, can we? No. We must say yes. Never be yesless. Never show the rest of the world yeslessness. In other words, we must try to be yesless. Because we don't want to end, do we? We don't want to end, do we? No. We don't want to end like the blind man in the dark room looking for the black cat that isn't even there. And that's why I'm here. I'm here to give you the definition of business. That is to carry Iceland successfully into the future. The definition of business that goes like this. To sell something you have got to somebody who needs it, that's not business. That's pure bureaucracy.
But to sell something you haven't got to somebody who doesn't need it, that's what it's all about for Iceland in the future. Thank you very much for listening.
Once I had a whistle, and I could whistle like this. I simply had to whistle. So I met a pretty girl, and the girl, she asked me for a kiss. And I said, I simply had to kiss her. But that pretty little girl, she stole my whistle, and now she can whistle like this. She simply has to whistle. So, but ever since she stole my whistle, I can't whistle like this, 'cause I have to miss my whistle. So if you've got a whistle, and you can whistle like this, then please don't kissel while you whistle, 'cause you'll end up whistling like this. Here comes, thank you very much. Here comes a country and western song. Well, I'm a lonesome cowboy, sitting in my saddle all day. I've been very lonesome since my horse died. That's right. Well, you want to hear more? Look, I'm speaking English all the time. You want me to speak Danish, or what do you... Yeah? Dansk? En sang på dansk? En sang på dansk. Okay. Midt i den islandske vinter kommer en dansk sang om sommeren. Og hvis man føler, man vil, nu taler jeg sådan skandinaviska. Det minder om finska. Det påminner om finska. I Finland har man olika lekar man brukar leka. Det finns en lek som heter jokke. Och när man ska spela jokke, då ska man vara 7-8 personer. Och de ska dricka en stor låda med sprit. Sen ska varje person få en lång skarp kniv. Och då ska man släcka ljuset. Sen ska varje person kasta kniven ur i luften. Och den som först blir träffad utav kniven, han är jokke. Det finns en annan lek. Man ska vara 3 personer. Och de ska dricka en stor kassa med sprit. Sen ska den ena personen lämna rummet. Och då ska de 2 andra gissa vem det var som lämnade rummet. Den kan också läckas utav 2. Men det kräver mera sprit. Men her er en sang, en dansk sang. Jeg ved, danskerne kender den. Hvis der er danskere til stede, må de meget gerne synge med. Og den handler om en lille fugl, det er en lærke. Og den handler om den største hemmelighed, og det er at finde lærkens rede. Hvis man kan finde lærkereden, så ved man, hvad det handler om i livet. Jeg ved en lærkerede, jeg siger ikke mere. Den findes på en hede, et sted som ingen ser. I reden er der unger, og ungerne har du. De pipper, de har tunger, og reden er så lun. Og de 2 gamle lærker, de flyver tæt omkring. Jeg tænker nok, de mærker, jeg gør dem ingenting. Jeg lurer bag en slåen, der står jeg ganske nær. Jeg rækker mig på tåen og holder på mit vejr. For ræven han vil bide, og drengen samle bær. Men ingen skal få vide, hvor lærkeræven er. Og vi skal til at slutte. Det her, det er en kinesisk melodi, som hedder tuning. What did you learn in school today, dear little boy of mine? What did you learn in school today, dear little boy of mine? This song was originally written by an American, but I've made my own version to hear a little bit more about what goes on in the schools all over the world. And in order to make it more understandable, I'll keep it all in English. And what's more natural than starting in English in England? Now, what you learn in school today, dear little chap of mine? Tell me exactly. What did the professor tell you in school today? Good old sport of mine. I learned that in Britain everything would be okay as long as it goes Mrs. Thatcher's way. And that Prince Philip is sponsored by a shaving machine. That's why we all sing God Save the Queen. That's what we learn in school today. That's what we learn in school. Now what do you learn in school today, mes garçons, eh? Me? I learned that in the common market to have harmony. We must learn to make love to even Germany. So I learned to make love the old French ways. Who cares to whom as long as it pays, huh? That's what the teacher said, that's what the teacher said. And that's what we learn in school today. That's what we learn in school. What to learn in school today, Schultz? By the way, a couple of years ago, I sang at a big party held in Elsinore, northern part of Zealand, and the guest of honor at that dinner party, you see, the occasion was the European Championship of Sea Fishing. The guest of honor was the German Prince Richard von Berlenburg, who happens to be married to the Danish Princess Benedicte. I don't know why. But he was there as the protector of the fish, I guess. And I made a special verse for him, and it goes like this. I learned that the Prince von Berlenburg is always on a fishing tour. And according to his own fishing tales, he will soon become the Prince of Wales. That's what we learn in school today. By the way, have you heard the announcement in a German airplane preparing its landing? Ladies and gentlemen, we are now preparing our landing, so please raise your seats to an upright position, fold your tables, and fasten your seatbelts. And I only want to hear one click. That's what we learn in school today. That's what we learn in school. What did he tell you in school today, amigo? Las castañetas. Either you can do this or you can't do it. I mean, I happen to be able to do it. I mean, if you can't do it, don't get frustrated. I'm sure you can do lots of other things. Go to Alaska on a fishing tour. Remember to bring your camera. There'll be no fishing. Ask your prime minister. He's forgotten why. I'm going to tell you one special thing. In Spain we have Costa Brava, Costa Mucho, and Costa del Sol, and Costa whatever it's called. In Spain we learn how to fight a bull, and how to make a tourist look like a fool. That's what we learn in school today. That's what we learn in school. Now tell me, kid, what did you pick up in school today, dear little boy of mine? What did the bastards push you with, dear little cowboy of mine? I learned that we were the first to put a man on the moon, and I'm sure we'll have a McDonald up there soon. The next step will be a military base, but of course just to protect the human race up in space, just in case. That's what we learn in school today. You see, a couple of years ago, the Danish Prime Minister Poul Slytter, he visited Ronald Reagan. He was very impressed with Reagan's way of testing his people in the White House. And he asked Ronald Reagan to show him how he tested his personnel. And Ronald Reagan, he called for his vice president, Mr. George Bush, and said, well, George, this is a test. Now listen carefully, George. Your father has one child, and he's a boy. Who is he, George? Well, I guess that's me, Mr. President. That's right, George. Go back to work. And Poul Slytter came back to Denmark and was very inspired. And immediately he called for his Secretary of State, Mr. Uffe Ellemann-Jensen, and said, Ellemann, det her er en test. Lyt nu forsigtigt. Din far har et barn, og det er en søn. Hvem er det? Det må være mig. Nej, jeg indrømmer, det er svært. Det er George Bush. That's what we learn in school today. That's what we learn in school. What did the Guru tell you in school today? What did the Guru tell you about development of India? I learned that in India there are many gurus. But no rice and curry. No rice and curry. In Pakistan there are dosa butter jam. That means toast, butter and jam. But no rice and curry. In Calcutta, no rice and curry even if you're hungry. But in New Delhi we used to have Rajiv Gandhi, but now we got a lot of problems. Lot of problems. But no rice and curry. Everybody said sorry, I'm sorry even if you're hungry. That's what we learn in school today. That's what we learn in school. Bambino, tremi pronto, tremi immediatamente. I learned how to cook a soup in minestrone. And that Italian men can make a love all alone. That Federico Fellini is molto fantastic, and how to make a pizza for export in a plastic. That's what we learn in school today. That's what we learn in school. Now, what to learn in school today, man? I mean, you have been to school, not? I thought it enough, man. I learned that Denmark is a little land, and in Denmark we do not understand. But the big world outside wonders for, and then we did not learn no more. Besides that we have Tivoli, the Little Mermaid, and a lousy economy, man. That's what we learn in school today. That's what we learn in school. Look, I should have had a Norwegian version. And actually, I spoke to a Norwegian and asked him to be kind enough to switch over to English so that I could hear how a Norwegian speaks English. And he said, of course, I can speak English. No problem. But honestly speaking, I don't think my English is very typical for a Norwegian. I mean, I happen to have been studying for 22 years in England. At Oxford, you know. So I definitely think you would have to find somebody else. And I never found somebody else, so I still don't know how they speak English. That's what we learn in school today. That's what we learn in school. And a common market version. Fattig learn het schoolfantag. Klein kleutertje. The only thing I learned was this: we used to have only the mannequin piece. But now we've got the EEC, and they can make an European pee, so they can piss on you and me. That's what we learn in school today. That's what we learn in school. Now what to learn in school today? The little boy of mine. What to learn in school today? You see, I was in New York the other year. But it's very hard for a Swede to speak English, you know. Where to put the word and where to put the pressure. And where to put the whole damn thing. But I learned that when I have my breakfast in the morning, that what you put on the bread, on the butter, the sweet stuff, you know. Ladies and gentlemen, mark my words. It's not pronounced yum. It's pronounced jam. But now they've changed it to jelly. I learned that the sound of the Swedish language most people know from the Swedish cook in the Muppet Show. And that the Swedish girls are so pretty you feel you're in heaven. But it's hard to find a virgin over 11. That's what we learn in school today. That's what we learn in school, yeah, yeah. Tack för ikväll.
Tack. Sounds i gamla bio.